Hey there, I'm Adrienne, transformation coach and your go-to gal for navigating grief and loss. On this show, we're not shying away from tough conversations. Let's talk about how we're really feeling and how to show up in our lives even though so many hard things have happened. Loss and grief are tough topics, but witnessing each other's pain and getting really honest about what we want our lives to look like in our next chapter is the way forward. You're not broken. You deserve happiness. And even though you might not think that's possible, or even feel like your life is over, I'm here to show you that you can feel peace, purpose, and joy again. Let's talk about all things change, loss, and grief, and how to move forward so we can create a life we love. Welcome to the Living With Loss podcast. Hey there, I'm Adrienne. Welcome back to Living With Loss. Today, I want to talk to the people that are supporting somebody that's grieving. So I do coaching that works with people in grief, but one of the things that I hear a lot from people that are grieving is that people don't know what to say or they say the wrong thing. We're going to go over some things that might be helpful to say to somebody that's grieving and some things that are most likely not going to be helpful for somebody that's grieving. And we're also going to talk about why certain things just aren't helpful. I think it's important to note that every person is different and everybody's grief is different. So when you're saying something to somebody that's grieving, be mindful that what you're intending to say or the way that you're intending what you're saying to be received may not be received that way. This is difficult, tricky terrain. That's why I wanted to talk about it. And it's something I've experienced myself recently. I had a dog that I've had since 2006 die recently. And just some things that were said after that, not super helpful. So it kind of got me thinking about this. And I figured if I hear something that somebody's saying and I'm like, probably could have said anything other than that, then other people probably feel that way too, right? So maybe it'd just be a helpful thing for us to talk about. So I want to start off by saying that if you're somebody that wants to help somebody in grief, you have to be willing to hear what doesn't help. If you are somebody that's grieving and you value your relationship with that person that's trying to help you, tell them what is not helpful. I'm not saying that you have to expend what little energy you have on grief education and explaining how to communicate. But if this person means a lot to you and you can tell they're trying to show up for you, they have good intentions, but they're saying something over and over and over again that's irritating you, that's frustrating you, it's making you mad, tell them, because chances are they don't know. Unless you've had a very significant loss, most people that haven't experienced that don't understand how certain things land. I think it is important if you are in relationships with somebody, you love them, you care about them, and you appreciate and want them to be there for you, but they're not showing up the way that you need them to, let them know what you need. So that's for people that are grieving, right? Let them know what you need. Let them know if something they're saying is not helpful. And if you're the person showing up and providing support, be open to feedback. Just be open to feedback. It may be uncomfortable, but that's the reality of the situation. Nobody is comfortable in this situation, whatever it is, right? A death, a divorce, a breakup, a health diagnosis, whatever it might be, whatever that loss is, whatever the grief is around. It's already an uncomfortable, difficult situation. Be open to the feedback from the person grieving if they tell you you're not saying the right thing or you're not showing up the way that they need you to. So with that said, I want to jump into what's helpful versus what's not helpful. So the first one I'm going to start off with, I would say, is helpful. I'm so sorry. And I wanted to start with this one because I was actually listening to an audiobook the other day, and the author was going through divorce and was writing about that and said, if one more person says, I'm sorry to me, I'm going to lose my mind or get mad or whatever the exact quote was. But expressing that I'm sorry was frustrating to them. And this is why I say that grief is unique and what people need is unique. Because to me, I'm so sorry, that is helpful because of a couple of reasons, really. Yeah, it sounds generic, but one, you're acknowledging the loss. You're acknowledging that that is a difficult thing for me to bear by saying that you're sorry, that I'm bearing it, that I'm going through it. So that is acknowledgement. That comment, too, I'm so sorry, that indicates that maybe you don't know the right thing to say. Maybe you don't have the perfect words. But there are no perfect words. So you're not even going to try to find them. You're not going to try to fix a problem that's unfixable. You're not going to try to fix something that's actually not a problem, right? Grief isn't a problem. So you're just showing up and you're saying, I'm so sorry. You're acknowledging the loss. To me, that's helpful. So I want to start with that one because I do think that's helpful. But like I said, I was listening to a book and the author said that particular thing during their divorce got very frustrating for them. So again, murky waters, right? What's good for one may not be so good for another. But general rule of thumb, I think I'm so sorry. It acknowledges the loss. It doesn't try to fix it. It doesn't try to diminish it. It doesn't try to make it a positive thing. It simply is. And I think that's helpful. I'm here for you. Also helpful. Maybe you don't know how to be there yet. Or maybe it's you're sitting beside them, you're willing to listen. I'm here for you. The person that you're saying that to will probably understand what you mean by that based on your relationship. I'm here for you. You're letting them know you're a person for them to turn to during this difficult time. You're willing to be there and hold the space and show up for them even when it's uncomfortable. I'm here for you. Simple, but meaningful. We're going to jump to a couple of not so helpful. They're in a better place. This one drives me crazy. This is actually one of the things that was said to me recently when my dog died. It was a very old dog, started having health problems, there's some pain at the end. They're in a better place. Now you're thinking, why is that not helpful? Maybe to the person in your life, you know that that is helpful. Maybe. But generally, that is not helpful because it's doing a few things. One, they're in a better place almost says you shouldn't feel the way that you feel because they're in a better place. Without saying it, it indicates or implies or could be received by the person as saying, well, you shouldn't be this sad. They're in a better place. Even if you're not saying you shouldn't be sad. That's kind of there. That's implied. It can be received that way. And I say that because that's how I received it. They're in a better place. Well, even if they are in a better place, that does not change the fact that I'm devastated right now. It just doesn't. The other thing is, you're assuming the person that you say that to believes that there is a better place. You may believe there's a better place. You may believe there's a heaven. You may believe there's something beyond what we're experiencing right now, but the person that you're saying it to may not. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I know this is a person of faith. I know that they believe that. Something to keep in mind is when somebody is grieving, especially a death, a lot of times we question everything that we know about life. We question what we believe happens after life. So these beliefs that have been held strong, maybe by a person of faith, maybe that's something they're wondering about, they're questioning. In addition to it implying your emotions aren't valid because they're in a better place, you're assuming a lot about what the person believes and where their headspace is around those beliefs when you say they're in a better place. Again, even if you think that person is a person of faith and they have that belief, this still may not be the most helpful thing to say. Similarly, I'll give you another not helpful. God won't give you more than you can handle. God won't give you more than you can handle. I feel like this is something my grandmother used to say, but not necessarily when somebody died, just generally in life. But again, this is a loaded statement. It's almost saying, well, you can bear this. So, oh, well, again, it's putting God in there and you're assuming this person's beliefs, this person's faith in this moment. It's also very frustrating when you're grieving, though I do think difficult times make you stronger. When you're in the midst of grief, when you're in the midst of pain, nobody wants to hear how this experience is for you. I personally believe that every experience is for us. It's for our learning, it's for our evolution, it's for our growth. That is a belief that I have. That is not a belief that everybody has. So God won't give you more than you can handle. Again, it's a little bit loaded because of the faith. You're making assumptions around what that person believes. And then also it's almost like, well, you can take this, you can handle this. It's a platitude and it's not helpful. We're going to shift back to things that are helpful. If somebody just died, or even if it's a difficult relationship, whatever it might be, saying, I love them so much, I'll miss them too. Things like that, acknowledging the love, the emptiness that will be there, that it's normal to miss this person that was part of your life. Helpful. Not trying to fix anything, not trying to minimize anything. You're sharing the experience, though your experience in the grief is not the same. You're showing or expressing that there was love. Again, you'll miss the relationship, you'll miss the person. That's helpful. Again, that's creating a shared experience, but it's not making it about you. It's just showing up beside them and letting them know you love their person, you're going to miss their person, stuff like that. Helpful. Something like, they were funny. They lit up a room. They made everyone smile. Acknowledging things about that person. That's helpful. People in grief, though it's difficult to talk about their person, believe it or not, even if they're talking about them through tears, they want to hear about their person. They want to hear about the memories. They want to talk about them. They want to hear what that person was to you. So acknowledging the fact that that person was funny, that that person made everyone smile, was so loving, whatever it was, that's helpful. So we're going to shift to not helpful. At least they're not suffering anymore. At least they're not suffering anymore. Couple reasons why this isn't helpful. One, it's bright siding, meaning you're trying to make the person look on the bright side of a really hard, terrible, difficult thing. Well, at least they're not suffering anymore. While that may be true, that does not diminish how that person feels about the death. It just doesn't. At least they're not suffering anymore. Also, is loaded with you making assumptions about what they believe comes next. And that, again, for somebody that lost somebody, might be questioning everything they believe, not helpful. But really that comes down to, again, trying to make somebody look on the bright side. Well, yeah, this really awful thing happened, but hey, at least this is good. Not helpful. And that was another thing that was said to me recently when my dog died. Well, at least they're not suffering anymore. It's true that the last couple days of my dog's life, he had moments of pain for sure. So when you say at least he's not suffering anymore, there's a couple things that came up for me. One, well, thanks for the reminder that he was in pain the last little bit of his life. Thank you for that. That's helpful. As if I don't feel bad enough that my dog just died, now let me feel bad about the fact that he was hurting. Perfect. That may not be what the person intended, but that is what that comment brought up for me. I also struggled with when is the right time to help this dog transition. And I did end up having to bring the dog to the vet and help him transition because, again, he was in pain at the end, but at least he's not suffering anymore. I was questioning this decision for a while, and that comment also made me feel like, did I not make the right decision at the right time? Did I wait too long? Was I being selfish? So all of this stuff is coming up for me after my dog died because of this one comment. Again, this is one of those things that may feel like a nice thing to say to somebody, but it can bring up a lot for the person that you're saying it to. And I think a good rule of thumb during grief is if something that you're saying or about to say sounds like, well, let's look on the bright side, Probably not going to be helpful. Another thing, not helpful, at least they lived a long life. At least they lived a long life. While that may be true, again, that doesn't diminish how I feel about this person or animal dying. It just doesn't change it. That's great that they had a long life. And I'm still really sad that they're not here anymore. Again, that's falls under that bright siding. Well, sucks that they died, but at least they got to live for a long time. It just, again, it's one of those things where you may have one intention in saying it, but there is a good chance it's going to be received in a way that you did not intend. So I want to talk about providing specific help to somebody going through a difficult time. Stuff that's helpful. You text somebody, you call them, hey, I left some lasagna at your door. Hey, I'm going to handle carpool for our kids for the next month. We're going to the same place anyways. Don't even worry about the to and from. I got it. I'll take care of it. Coworker. I know you're working on this project. Don't even worry about it. Don't give it a second thought. I got it. I'm taking it over. Last thing you need to worry about right now. Don't worry about it. I got this. These are specific things. This might sound very difficult. It's like, well, I don't know what the person needs. This is where it can be a little bit tricky, but it can be helpful for you to anticipate what that person will need and provide it. And I say that because when somebody's grieving, the last thing that they want to do or are able to do is make a laundry list of all the ways that you can help them. It requires too much at a difficult time. It really does. So if you could anticipate some of the things that they may need, don't worry about your yard work. My husband's going to take care of that. Don't give it a second thought, whatever it is, right? It could be something super small. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. But when you're specific and you just take a task off the plate, that's helpful because that's less that that person needs to think about or worry about or schedule or reach out to somebody else about or take what little energy they have to actually do it. So anticipating what they may need and coming to them with a specific offering or just doing it, that's helpful. Not so helpful. What can I do? What can I bring? What do you need? If you're outside of the immediate acute pain and you're close with this person, and maybe it's 3 months down the line, and a lot of like all of those immediate tasks have been handled, maybe those questions might be a little bit more helpful. But if this person that you're trying to support just lost somebody, or just experienced a divorce, or just lost their job, whatever it is, asking them to tell you everything they need, probably going to feel overwhelming. It's going to make them think, and thinking and coming up with specific things right after a loss when they're grieving deeply, it's very, very difficult to do. So again, if you want to show up and provide tangible support, anticipate what's needed and just do it. Or the other thing is, if there's somebody in their life that's kind of running point on everything, like a sister or spouse or parent or whoever it might be, best friend, maybe get with that person and be like, hey, I want to provide meals or carpool, whatever it is, right? Whatever your thing is going to be. Is this needed? And coordinate with them. If there's a point person, coordinate with them. That's helpful. But if you're going to the person that's grieving and you're asking them, well, what do you want? What do you need? What can I do? The person that's grieving is probably like, you can get out of my face because I don't feel like talking to you and I don't feel like thinking of something to keep you busy to make you feel good about helping me. I just want to be sad or mad or whatever it is that I want to feel. So again, your intention might be great, but on the execution of that intention, it may be received differently than you intended to. So again, specificity is helpful. Coordinating with a point person, helpful. Going to the person that's grieving and asking them to tell you specific things that they want from you or they need from you, not helpful. I don't want to make this episode overwhelming with too much information. So I'm going to leave it with this last point of, if you say something like, I can't imagine what you're going through, that must be so difficult. That really sucks. Believe it or not, that's helpful. That's acknowledging that you don't know the exact pain they're feeling because you don't, or that pain they're feeling is really, really hard and it's difficult and You're not trying to fix it. You're just acknowledging what they're in. That is helpful. Not helpful. I know exactly how you feel. For example, even if you had a parent that died and one of their parents just died, and you have that same loss, it doesn't mean that you feel the same in that loss, because grief is unique. Grief is so unique to the individual, to the love that was experienced in that relationship, to the depth of that relationship, to so many things that comprise that unique relationship. So you can't possibly feel the exact same thing as somebody else in loss. You just can't. Everybody's grief experience is unique. So if you acknowledge their pain, that it's difficult, that you don't know how they feel, that's helpful. If you try to say that you know exactly how they feel because you had a same or similar loss in your life, not helpful. While you're saying that, there's a good chance they're responding in their head, you have no fucking idea. There's a good chance. Maybe they're not, but probably. As I think about all of this, I think the thread that ties it all together is if you're trying to support somebody in grief, shift your thinking to grief is an experience to be supported, to be loved, to be witnessed. If you approach it from that lens, you're probably going to be helpful to that person. If you're looking at their grief as a problem to be solved, you are probably going to be more of a nuisance than you are a help. And again, I understand that that may not be the intention, but that may be how it's received. If you keep the idea in your mind of supporting, witnessing, and even the idea of companioning, and by that, I mean, be with them, really, truly be with them. And I have two stories that I'll share about this. When my dog passed, when I brought to the vet to help him transition, my boyfriend and my friend, who's also a vet tech at that vet, who was a dog sitter for my dogs for many years, knows my dogs, has a great relationship with my dogs, was there with me when my dog transitioned. And I stayed with my dog the whole time, and I cried the whole time. I held him and I cried. My boyfriend held my hand over the dog that I was holding, and my friend was rubbing my back. There was no reassurances. There was no trying to make it better. There was no telling me how I should feel. They were just with me as I ugly cried for an uncomfortable duration of time. Because that is what companioning somebody in grief is. It's just being with them. It's holding space for the big, messy feelings, for the tears, for whatever stream of consciousness comes out of that person, whatever they want to vent about, whatever they want to say. It's just holding space for it. It's not telling them they shouldn't feel a certain way. It's not telling them they should feel better. There's not platitudes about how it's a better situation now. None of that. When you companion somebody in grief, you're just with them and you kind of let them take the lead. The other story is when my grandmother died, and my grandmother died shortly after I graduated high school. That was, and still is, the hardest loss of my life. And it was the night after she had died. So I spent the day with family. The night after she died, I was with a friend, and we put the TV on. Couldn't tell you what was on the TV. No idea. And I cried for probably 8 hours until I fell asleep on the couch. I just cried, sobbed, went through a box of tissues probably, maybe 2 boxes of tissues, who knows. When I cry, things get messy. So a lot of tissues, a lot of crying, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it was probably 8 hours of just me laying on a couch crying. And my friend just sat there, occasionally got up and got a glass of water, gave it to me. If I wasn't talking, they weren't talking, because my friend recognized that that pain was not fixable. I just had to feel it. So rather than showing up and saying nice things, and as I sit and sob and ugly cry, leaving, parked it on the couch, and just sat with me while I cried. That's companioning somebody. And I bring that up because that can be a really difficult thing to do. It can be very difficult to sit with somebody when they're feeling all the big feelings. It can be uncomfortable because most people, myself included, when somebody you care about is in pain, when they're struggling, you want to fix it. You want to help. You want to make it better. But the reality is, especially after the death of a loved one, but really applies to just about any grief, you can't fix it. You can't make it better. You can't change it. You can't take away the pain. So just be with the person, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're kind of squirming and you really wish they'd stop crying because you don't know what to do, or maybe it's making you cry and that's uncomfortable. Just sit with them. Just be with them. Like I said, maybe grab the glass of water. Get another box of tissues when that first one runs out. And your person's grief, it'll change over time. It'll show up in different ways. It never goes away. It just changes forms, right? Because whoever you lost or whatever you lost, you carry with you. It could be 10 years from now and a song comes on and you think of that person or it sparks a memory. And maybe you're manically laughing because that was a funny day. Or maybe you're sobbing because it breaks your heart to think about it. There's no fixing it. The best thing you can do is be with the person and just witness it. Witness their pain. Just be there for them. And I say the best thing that you can do is that because it is so difficult, most people are unable to do it for them. So I hope this has been helpful. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There are a lot of things that can be helpful and not helpful. But again, if you keep the idea in mind of companioning, being supportive, it being an experience, is supported, is loved, is witnessed, you're on the right track. If you're looking at it like this is something that's got to be fixed or made better, probably not going to be helpful. So with that, I will let you go. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you or somebody you know is currently grieving and you can use some support with that, pop on over to my website and download my free guide. I have a guide, 5 essential tools for immediate relief from grief, even if you don't think that's possible. And there is something in there for everyone that will help you get some space and some emotional stability, even if just for a few moments during your grief. So if you need that, I encourage you to download it. So thank you again for listening. And until next time, I hope you have a fantastic week. That's it for today's episode, my friends. Thanks so much for joining me on the Living with Loss podcast. Please like and follow the show so you don't miss an episode. If you're looking for more grief support, grab my free guide, 5 essential tools for immediate relief from grief, even if you don't think that's possible. Head on over to adriennecrowley.com and download it. Remember, you may not have chosen all the changes or losses in your life, but you get to choose what happens next. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Until then, have a fantastic week.